Special economic zones, first developed in the late 50s, have long been touted as an effective way to ramp up foreign direct investment, increase trade, and provide jobs for developing and developed countries alike. They come in many forms, but they're usually geographically limited areas where companies enjoy tax benefits and other legal privileges. UNCTAD estimates that in 2020, Africa had approximately 237 of these. Well, Nigeria has about 38 such zones, and tucked away about 60 kilometers to the east of Lagos City, the Lagos Free Zone is a special economic zone and the first private free trade zone in Nigeria. The zone covers an area of 830 hectares and is fully equipped with world-class infrastructure, a single clearance window for ease of doing business, and integrated with a 90-hectare Lekki deep sea port, which will allow for access to regional and international markets. Today, I'm speaking with a man who believes that the Lagos Free Zone is poised to add $12 billion to Nigeria's GDP. He is Dinesh Rathi, the MD CEO of the Lagos Free Zone. He's a member of the leadership team at Tolaram, a Singapore-headquartered conglomerate with major interests in Africa. He has worked in Nigeria for 18 years in a variety of positions and formerly held positions at Unilever and the corporate banking division of ICICI Bank. Welcome to the show, Mr. Rathi. Great to have you on the show. You know, this is quite a transformational project in my mind. You've been around now, the Free Zone, for 11 years. What would you say has been the broad economic impact of the Free Zone?
So thank you very much, Rolake. So let me begin by explaining about Lagos Free Zone. So Lagos Free Zone is an 850-hectare special economic zone developed in 65-kilometer east of Lagos in the Ibeju-Lekki axis. The zone has got Lekki deep sea port, which is spread across 90 hectares, and it is well integrated with our zone. And then the zone is divided into multiple clusters, which are broadly industrial, logistics, and real estate development. In terms of the total land size is about 850 hectares, out of which in the phase 1, we have developed close to 300 hectares. And that is going to go live. In terms of the economic impact, I think Nigeria really needs special economic zones to create industrial ecosystem, and that's the first thing which we have done to provide Nigeria with a world-class industrial ecosystem. The Lekki deep sea port itself adds 1.2 million containers in terms of the port handling capacity.
Annually?
Annually.
Okay.
So it means about 70% of the current cargo handling capacity of the country goes up immediately because of the Lekki deep sea port. In terms of our contribution to the national exchequer, last year alone, the zone without the port contributed close to 22 billion naira to the Nigeria Customs Service, which is about 1% of their national collections. This year, in the first half alone, we have contributed 16 billion naira, and we are well on track to contribute about 40 billion naira by the end of this year. And this is all without the port numbers. The port started only in the month of April, and that will contribute separately to the Nigeria Customs Service in terms of customs duty. In terms of the job creation, totally we have created close to 4,000 jobs at the moment, out of which about 25% has been from the regional communities which are neighboring us. And in terms of the jobs being more created in the near future, we are looking at a number of 30 to 40,000 once the zone is fully functional. So that's the kind of employment impact this zone and the port ecosystem is going to have on the Nigerian economic scene.
And I mean, those are fantastic figures, quite transformational. You know, I was talking about the fact that there's so many of these zones, but somehow this is one of the few ones that has actually worked. So how did you make it work? And now, how many companies do you have within the Free Zone?
So currently we are having 25 operating enterprises which are fully functional. I mean, the reason why it's different is because of the presence of the port itself. That solves for a major pain point, which is the logistics in an inbound and outbound logistics problem. And then we have got all the ingredients and factors of production present inside our Free Zone. So we have taken a lot of pains through our learnings of operating manufacturing at Tolaram. We have distilled those learnings and implemented all those learnings when we have designed this particular Free Zone.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I guess one of the complaints many companies have is their sourcing inputs, and if you localize your value chain within the Free Zone, then it's easier. So how is this impacting initiatives such as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? Are you seeing more intra-Africa trade now as a result of the port coming and even before that, just the existence of the Free Zone?
I think the port and the zone ecosystem creates wonderful opportunities for Nigeria to tap into the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So once the rules and regulations governing the cross-border trade is finalized, I think this is a great opportunity to set up your business inside the zone, cater to the domestic market of 220 million consumers, use Lekki Port to reach out to other parts of Africa through intra-Africa trade using AFCFTA. So it's a golden opportunity, and I think, and we believe, and it's our vision that Lagos Free Zone becomes the hub not only for the Nigerian manufacturing, but from an African manufacturing point of view.
Yeah, and we often talk about the fact that infrastructure has to be integrated. So I want to talk about other types of infrastructure that make what you do even better. The road network around the free zone, how critical is it to what you do? Because, you talk to real estate developers or other large-scale industrial companies, and they always talk about the challenges with the road network. What do you think needs to be done to enhance the fantastic work that you're already doing at the free zone?
So over the last 15-20 years, the Ibeju-Lekki axis has emerged as an economic epicenter with the likes of Lekki Port, Lagos Free Zone combination coming on stream, Dangote projects, the Lekki Free Zone and the Pinnacle Oil and Gas, all of that coming together to create a vibrant economic ecosystem. The challenge has always been that the road network hasn't kept pace in line with the economic development. Although we have seen in the last few years, there has been significant addition of road capacity in the Ibeju-Lekki and the Epe axis. However, we are still running behind in terms of developing those roads. So the current coastal road, which connects the Lekki Deep Sea Port as we speak, is being widened and will be fit to use. The widened road will be fit to use by middle of next year. And we are also currently engaged with the private sector as well as the public sector stakeholders operating within that axis to develop some new roads to decongest that axis from a futuristic standpoint.
Yeah. So recently I saw in the news that there was some talk about the Ukrainian investors kind of looking at the port to locate some sort of grain terminal there. And we know that food security is such a big problem now. Do you almost see yourselves as missionaries trying to help solve some of these supply chain and commodities trade issues? And how is this particular example going to help, kind of push that?
So the Lekki port has been envisioned to handle multiple cargoes, which is containerized, dry bulk, and liquids. So the container cargo terminal is fully live and functional. The bulk terminal, that concession lies with Tolaram and Lagos Free Zone. So as part of developing that particular dry bulk terminal, we entered into a memorandum of understanding with government of Ukraine, their Ministry of Agric and food supply. So as part of that MOU is in place, and once we reach a landing in terms of going ahead, then you will see some developments happening, and it will help to solve the food supply and other related issues between not only for Nigeria but other West African countries.
Yeah, and in fact we often talk about how many African countries are very dependent on food imports, but part of what we call this segment Free Zones as a catalyst for sustainable economic development. So in terms of trying to retain more local value within the Nigerian economy, create jobs and ensure local manufacturing and local sourcing, what is sort of the next strategy or policy? How do you intend to impact entrepreneurs or businesses who are trying to make a difference by retaining value locally here within the Nigerian economy?
So we have created an industrial ecosystem, and not only in terms of providing the port access, we are also providing low-cost energy through piped natural gas. So all of that help you to bring down your overall cost of operation. And for small and medium enterprises, we have created standard factories. These are plug-and-play infrastructure which is created. They can lease 2,000 to 3,000 square meters of space. They can just bring in their machinery or basic stuff and do value-add manufacturing without investing in the capital expenditure, without really worrying about their port logistics or power.
And of course, they get other incentives.
Absolutely.
As well.
So that's also backed by fiscal incentives and ease of doing business. Because the ease of doing business comes from having all the regulatory agencies under one roof. And they are all connected via a technology platform. So that creates an overall and a very, very easily, they can operate. and that really solves for a lot of problem because
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, sorry. I was going to say, given how successful this model is proving, is this something that's easily replicable across the region or in other parts of Nigeria? And is that something Tolaram would look at doing?
So currently we are at just the beginning of our journey, I would say, because we have just completed the phase 1 of our free zone. The pot has just started this year. There is a lot of growth expected within our free zone itself. It's an 850 hectares free zone. We will be busy for the next 15-20 years with this particular free zone itself. And this zone has been built by distilling, as I said, distilling the learnings of our operations in Nigeria.
Right.
And all the learnings have been put into place. Now, I mean, looking at the other geographies at this juncture, looks the timing is not right. But having said that, I think we will always be willing to look at opportunities if they are really good and the situations permit. We will always evaluate them.
Yeah, and of course, no business or no operation exists in isolation of what's happening in the macroeconomy. You may have heard the conversation I had with Mr. Rolake. We're talking about inflation, interest rates, the exchange rate, the policies. I mean, which ones keep you up at night as the CEO of the Lagos Free Zone? Is the Lagos Free Zone just in this bubble? Are you immune to many of these economic headwinds? And how are you trying to manage and navigate around some of these challenges?
So Rolake, no business in Nigeria can operate without having a close watch on what the macro is, right? And having said that, I think the policy reforms unleashed by this current administration, I think they will have short-term pains, and I agree with Dr. Revane when he stated that we will have to bear through the next 4 to 5 months, 6 months, through this navigating this painful journey. Till in first quarter, we will see some emergence of green shoots. Now that is also impacting people like us, definitely, because it impedes new investment by other operators.
Yes,
in the
course.
meanwhile, because everybody is looking at managing the present, and with inflation at 23% and with the exchange rate hitting new highs every day, I think there is a pain for all operators within Nigeria. But of course, this augurs well in terms of the policy reforms which has been unleashed, and this will create long-term positive implications for the Nigerian macro.
So you're such a large operation, over 800 hectares. I have to ask you about your carbon footprint, because I know you talked about gas before, but I wondered whether, when we talk about large-scale manufacturing, whatever, now financiers, investors, operators, developers are concerned about climate change. How are you being positioned to be more climate resilient, and what is your contribution to emissions reduction? Do you have a net zero target as an operation, or are you holding your operators in the free zone to account on their own emissions?
So the Lagos Free Zone, as I said, is a member of the Tolaram group of companies, and Tolaram is in its 75th year of its existence. And as part of that, we have embarked upon a sustainability agenda.
Right.
And Lagos Free Zone also has its own sustainability agenda comprising of multiple goals. And one of the key goals is to achieve net zero by the year 2030. And as part of that process, there are 2 areas we are working on. One is the greenhouse gas reduction, and the other is offsetting the greenhouse gas which will be generated to achieve neutrality by 2030. So on the first front, reducing our greenhouse gases, we have fully moved to gas as a fuel to power our operation. Gas as a fuel actually lowers the entire the carbon footprint for the zone. Secondly, we are also in the process of setting up a grid network. Once that grid network is live and operational, we will simultaneously embark upon putting on solar on all the rooftops. So all the buildings have been designed to accommodate solar panels.
Rooftop solar.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that helps to bring down the overall carbon footprint, the usage of gas, and ultimately the carbon footprint. We are also reducing vehicular emissions by locating the housing for most of our staff inside our zone, so that their movements are limited and very much restricted. Thirdly, we have set up a material recovery facility inside our zone. So all the solid waste which gets generated by all the factories and enterprises inside our zone, that gets segregated and sold to recyclers and reusers. And then only the ones which cannot be recycled or reused are then sent for dumping. So that's how we are managing currently the entire carbon footprint. In terms of the offset, we have a clear plan of acquiring similar kind of land.
Yeah.
So out of the 850 hectares, 50 hectares has been reserved for green and blue cover. So that's already there. The balance 800 hectares, we plan to take over some kind of a bioconservation site and develop that. So that's a long-term ambition which we have to offset in terms of the carbon which will be generated to achieve our neutrality.
Yeah, fantastic. Are you at all concerned about the scores of young Nigerians who are leaving and moving overseas? You know, we always talk about retention policies, giving the skill of, you know, the labor or the bench strength you will need to run that operation and run it into the future. You're talking about an additional 800 hectares. How are you, such a large operation, managing the issue of the skills and the workforce?
So very interestingly, we have just set up an industrial skills training center to upgrade and upskill our young workers. And as part of that, we are also taking youths from the communities. So they are being trained. And an example to that is our fire station, for example, has been fully made operational and being run today by the youths from the neighboring communities. They've all been trained at the Federal Fire Service. So we have proved, you know, through examples that actually you can create those kind of jobs which can be then, you know, retained and invested for in the long run.
Yeah, and in 10 years' time, what would the Lagos Free Zone look like as we wrap up?
Well, if I take a time travel to say 2035 or 2040, I would say that we will be speaking about 150 to 200 companies operating in our zone and contributing to roughly about 2 to 3% of the national GDP. And moving Nigeria as a manufacturing hub for the rest of Africa using the Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Well, let's hope your dreams come true, because it means all our dreams come true. Thank you so much, Mr. Dinesh Rathi, MD, CEO of the Lagos Free Zone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it from us here at Business Week. Tune in next weekend for more top stories, insights, and analysis on global business. Don't forget to send me a tweet or a thread to continue the conversation online. Have a fantastic weekend. I'm Rolake, Akinkugbe-Filani. See you.